What's going on, everybody? This is the Blockchain Backer, bringing you the latest cryptocurrency news and analysis. Today, we have a little bit of green over here in the cryptocurrency market after the prices in the market have been able to maintain, at least for the market cap, has been able to maintain since that low that was set back there on November 9th, 5 days ago. So a relatively kind of quiet weekend as we had in here, with prices still maintaining within this range. For the altcoin market cap, Bitcoin's somewhat of the same story. Still, no new lows have been set since November 9th. We are 5 days later. But with the recent price action of Bitcoin setting a new low below the previous all-time high from 2018 over here on the market cap, also taking out retracement levels, all the inconsistencies now compared to 2014 and 2018. Figured in this video we'd spend some time diving into the different scenarios for Bitcoin and what we've been talking about for the last year, and what now? Where can Bitcoin's price go to based on speculations we've been making for the last year? So we'll spend a couple of minutes kind of diving into like just the things that happened over the last couple of days in regards to FTX and exchanges and all that stuff. We'll spend a couple minutes on that, and then we'll just really dive into the charts for the remainder of this video. You know, the last video I put out was just a couple of days ago on Friday. So here we are on Monday. Friday, you know, that's when SBF and FTX announced that they had filed for bankruptcy. So obviously all the events that cascaded throughout the market within those few days after CZ announced that they were going to be selling the FTT token. FTT collapsed from $22 to $1, and then allegedly started showing the potential fraud that was taking place in here with users' funds being used as collateral. And then, well, leading to bankruptcy in just a matter of a couple of days. That feels like a year ago because of what took place throughout the weekend, right? That very same evening, November 11th, heading into the morning of November 12th, well, then FTX gets hacked, quotation hacked, and then $600 million leaves FTX. Questions are around on whether or not this was an actual hack or if this was a backdoor that was put in place, and whether or not insiders played a role in any of this. I don't know. I'm not an insider to any of this information. I'm following along with it just like everybody else is. But of course, seeing all this stuff happen with this exchanges has also presented worries out there in the market on what's going to happen with other exchanges, and especially if they issue their own exchange token. Questions have arisen around Crypto.com and around Gate.io on a transaction that took place back in October where 320,000 Ethereum were sent from Crypto.com to Gate.io. Then on October 28th, Gate.io shows their proof of reserves and then sends Ethereum back to Crypto.com. Crypto.com CEO Chris over here says it was supposed to be a move to a new cold storage address, but it was sent to a whitelisted external exchange address. We worked with Gate team and the funds were subsequently returned to our cold storage. New process and features were implemented to prevent this from occurring or from reoccurring. In other words, they're saying it was an accident that we sent 320,000 Ethereum to them. Chris, CEO of Crypto.com, reiterates the ETH transfers that generated so much FUD and speculation on Twitter today were made over 3 weeks ago on October 21st. Then there become lots of warnings out there to get your money off of Crypto.com and concerns of whether or not these exchanges actually have the reserves. The communities on Twitter have been calling for these CEOs and for these exchanges to come and answer questions publicly regarding the safety of the money on their exchanges. Late last night, Chris held an AMA over there on YouTube. I've not gotten a chance to listen to this yet, but I'm definitely cheering for them to be in good standing. I've never used Crypto.com before, but of course I want to see everything work out. I don't want to see more of these exchanges go down. We've already had enough public perception tainted here on the cryptocurrency market. The last thing we need is a cascade of these exchanges all having the same problems. On that note, CZ Binance announced this morning to reduce further cascading negative impacts or effects of FTX. Binance is forming an industry recovery fund to help projects who are otherwise strong but in a liquidity crisis. More details to come soon. In the meantime, please contact Binance Labs if you think you qualify. And currently right now, CZ is holding a space over there on Twitter. This will probably be over by the time this video goes live. There's over 40,000 people in this space listening. I've spent the first 30 minutes listening to this, but at the same time, it's morning. We got to get going. We got to take a look at these charts. We got to talk about what's going on in the market. I will listen to the remainder of that in the recording, and I will listen to the Crypto.com AMA as well. But with how everything has played out last night, I posted about it on Twitter last night. If you tried to imagine this whole thing and write a movie about it, you couldn't. It's got all the elements of a completely engaging, thrilling, thrilling, exciting movie. And who knows what is true and what is rumor and what's made up. That's all up for debate. But we have billions of dollars. You have corruption. You have irresponsibility, deception, hacking, a heist, mansions, drugs, sex, celebrities, and politicians. And we're all just sitting on the edge of our seat waiting for the next surprise, because it seems that every 24 hours, something new happens. And after all of this craziness, and after the heist or the hack that happened, there's been nothing out of SBF since Friday when they announced the bankruptcy, except last night, randomly posting, "What?" and then following with H. No thread, no nothing. That's it. So certainly a weird time in the cryptocurrency market. Out of the 5.5 years that I've been in here, this moment is just bizarre as can be. But of course, one thing that people care about the most is prices and what's going to happen to the cryptocurrency market next. The debate is still up in the air on whether or not this was the Wyckoff spring finishing move for the market. Of course, if we use past experiences of what happened in the cryptocurrency market when Luna and UST collapsed, that was kind of our initial fall. Then contagion spread, and we saw a way bigger move come up next. So for the last 5 days after November 9th, once prices really hit this bottom over here on the altcoin market, still the prices have maintained in there. This is the bottom that happened for the altcoin market back in 2019 and 2020. This is your C19 scare that happened in here. Lots of waddling around at the bottom and then slowly grinding its way out right now. So looking for similarities in there, obviously looking to see that we've already had the insane moment already occur, and to see that the market can still maintain itself right in here. If we start breaking down even lower, well, you start to add some more worry, I would think. But so far, hey, it's held it for 5 days. Now we spent the last 5 months talking about Wyckoff accumulation in here. Your spring is usually going to be your scariest moment in here, where it really tries to rock the floor and tries to break that floor and see how hard it can hit it. We're definitely getting hit with the narratives of absolute awfulness right now. So it'll be real interesting to see if these levels can maintain in here. Otherwise, we would have tested this floor 2 separate times with 2 really big scary narratives. One, Luna collapse, and then all the contagion, and then FTX again. So we'll see how this week goes with how things have been acting in this market and how quick things are. One would assume if it's going to break, probably pretty soon, you would think. Of course, one of the frustrating things about all this has been that all of this is happening as the US dollar has turned over, and it's been upwards for a year and a half, then it breaks, and then FTX happens at the same time. So we finally see a big move happen over here on the DXY, and the week that it does happen, of course, we get our own problems in the crypto market. Looking over here at the indicators, you can even see finally the MACD flipping red, crossing on the weekly time frame after being parabolic for so long. Finally, it's flipping with weakness. You could see that on the relative strength index after uptrending here for a year and a half. Finally, it breaks, and then we get all of our stuff going on in here. So, from the macro perspective of the dollar, we might be seeing good signs. It would be nice to have the confluence of this happening with the spring at the same time. But unfortunately, we saw what happened with Luna. We saw what happened with UST and how there was contagion that happened afterwards. And so it's kind of just to sit back and grind our teeth and bite our fingernails. But Bitcoin's a big story over here. So we'll kind of I'll talk about the things that are going on in my mind when it comes to Bitcoin. And we're going to kind of revisit some of the things that have been said over the last year and my thought process on whether or not, if Bitcoin finds this bottom, that it would give it at least a chance or a shot at a new all-time high, whether it would be a minimal all-time high or not, or if it would just end up being a retrace. And then if we went down lower, really kind of creates a very negative perception or negative outlook for Bitcoin in general after what has happened in here, after an entire super cycle running up. And so I'll show a little clip from a year ago, from back here in October. This is when I was expecting the top of Bitcoin to be coming in. This is when everybody's running with super cycle theories and running with rainbow models, 100K, 200K, 300K. And we'll talk about the things that I was looking for us to start moving down. I went through it in many different videos over the course of the last year, but there's so many videos that I put out in a year. I put out over 200 videos in a year. It's hard to remember which ones they're in. So I'm going to go back to a live stream I did, because I remember doing this because I happened to be traveling. I was on the porch of a patio in Nashville, Tennessee, when I did this live stream. That's why it was easy for me to remember this. Some of you may remember it when a wild turkey walked across the street as I was doing the live stream. But we're going to kind of play a couple of minutes of this from this live stream and the things I was talking about at the time, to kind of understand what my thought process has been over the last year, over the last several months, as the price of Bitcoin has been where it's been at. And we can see how we were thinking about these things a long time ago. We finally got here and what the thought process has been. And now what the thought process is going to be moving forward now that Bitcoin has set a new low. So we'll play this here for just a moment, a couple of minutes to kind of get an idea, and then we can talk about it.
What are your predictions on the length of the bear market? From what I gleaned from previous videos, I expect it to last longer than previous cycles. Right. So, when we get there and it feels like we're really in a bear market, I'll present my bear market theses. But this bear market could be different than ones we've seen before. This could be a big one. If the Dow Jones and the S&P 500 are topping, like real topping, like I just showed you, 4.236 on the SPX. Dow Jones only 12% away from how high it went before the Great Depression of the 1920s. Bitcoin has been in existence since the bottom of the Great Financial Crisis and has had the luxury of riding all the way up during the whole thing. If we're crashing in stocks and everything, crypto has had a tendency to follow the stock market. This time could be different if the stock market is different. It could not be your typical 85% crash you normally see in Bitcoin. And there's people here who want to say this time is different. Institutions are here, blah, blah, blah. Bitcoin can't crash 85% because of institutions. I don't believe that for half a second. It absolutely could. No question. And if the stock market is topped, for real top, we could be in for a wild, wild ride. So there we go.
So back here on October 20th, we're talking about the top coming in. We're talking about how deep bear markets can go and that it's going to depend a lot as well as what's going on with the stock market, right? And we're talking about 85% crashes because that's historically what Bitcoin does do. Back at that time, as we were setting that fresh new all-time high, people thought it would be impossible for Bitcoin to crash 85% again. I was having a little fun with it. I was running polls with it. Hey, what comes next? 100K for Bitcoin or 20K for Bitcoin? And of course, the vast majority of people thought we were going to 100K, no matter how much the argument was presented that we were actually topping for Bitcoin. But going into it, even being here, the moment we're setting a fresh new all-time high, talking about 85% crashes, talking about how deep Bitcoin could go, but that there was the potential for something even worse than that to happen, depending on what's going on with the stock market, because the stock market was hitting 4.236 extensions as well for the S&P 500 and really close there for the Dow Jones and the NASDAQ. But it's important to notice the discussions of how deep these things can go, then the complications of the stock market in there as well. But let's go ahead and take a look at what I've been saying about my expectations for how deep Bitcoin could go.
The thing is, we're in a new all-time high for Bitcoin. If this thing starts doing it, it's just going to depend what this looks like, right? So I've talked about this. This is kind of my expectation. It comes back to the all-time high, goes in for its final push. Boom, that's the end for Bitcoin. The big thing for me that I'll be watching is what is happening here in this structure in here. And it just depends to me, how long does this take to play out right in here? And that we're going to see everybody and their mom, just like I said, we would see a head and everybody would recognize the cup and handle, right? Everybody would recognize the cup and handle coming in here, right? Cup and handle. Everybody and their mom will see that. Head and shoulders showing up. And at the head and shoulders, what would it do? If you fall from here, you measure the length of the neckline. Where does the length of the neckline take you? Right down here, back to the all-time high. Is that going to be good enough? Or do we do what we've done in every bull run, in every bear market, where it actually comes down to here? Or is the stock market in real crazy and we go even lower? We'll find out.
So, while not playing out perfectly, we can get a general idea of the thought process going on in here that we would really just kind of set a little bit of a high and then just try to go for it one more time and then a big fallback down, which is what we ended up having happen over here on Bitcoin. Just a little push with one more little attempt to go before falling all the way back down in here to get that to play out. Obviously, incredible weakness in here, But for the most part, that's what we saw, right? A failed attempt, one more failed attempt, and then falling all the way down as anticipated to occur in here, and then getting, your head and shoulders neckline breakdown with a measured move taking you back to the all-time high. So what do? We break through it, and then we head all the way down. Where do we go? Where do we find our support levels at in here? Right back at the all-time high. And while not perfect over there on the Bitcoin price chart, over here on the market cap, it was an exact nail of it right in there. That's where we headed to after doing the 4.236 extension in here for Bitcoin, heading right back down to the all-time high. It's like, okay, so potential, that could be our bottom, right? So for the last several months, looking around to say, are we seeing indicators occurring here in Bitcoin that are consistent with what happens in bottoms after they already come in? And we found an enormous amount of things indicating the exact same thing that we saw for Bitcoin back in 2014 and 15, and for Bitcoin back in 2018 and 2019. And that by the time we had gotten there, we had already seen oversold RSI. We'd already seen the 50-week and the 100-week moving averages cross themselves, just like we saw back in 2018. And we also saw this back in 2015. By the time that it occurred with the oversold RSI, we were already done. Even on the monthly time frame, looking at it from in here, RSI already all the way reset. And just like in 2014 and in 2018, that the MACD on the monthly time frame had already flipped in here. So a lot of confluence, a ridiculous amount of confluence indicating, hey, this is looking pretty close. Still doesn't look like there's a bull run in Bitcoin's future. Maybe just a retrace. Of course, that catches a lot of flack to present the idea that that would be the only thing that Bitcoin would end up getting. But a reasonable thought, that's where we could be heading based on measurements before the top had ever come in back here in October of 2021, before we had even already set our new top or our final top in here. So now we have a lot of different problems going on here for Bitcoin. One, we've just stepped ourselves further away from the 200-week moving average. Look through history, go compare this to 2014 and in 2018. This is not things that happened during this time frame. Look at the 50-week and the 100-week moving averages. By the time these things had crossed, we were already done. So enough time had elapsed, enough price action had already occurred, enough selling had already occurred to mark that the bottom was already in. Weekly time frame, same story. Bottom was already in by the time we got oversold. We went the most oversold on the weekly time frame we've ever seen. Bottom was still not in there for Bitcoin. And then not only that, the price behavior is absolutely nothing like what happened in both of these circumstances of ABC corrections. Now at this point, price action and price behavior is very different from both of these. But of course, to understand, why would I take a stab at that price level? One, Wyckoff accumulation appearing, and two, it's a level that I've looked at from before we even topped on Bitcoin, that was an area of interest for me. But I have been stopped out on it, so what next?
Is that going to be good enough? Or do we do what we've done in every bull run, in every bear market, where it actually comes down to here?
So before we've even topped for Bitcoin in October of 2021, we're talking about what? 12 to 14K. Mind you, this is still when people are screaming for rainbow models and extended cycles that we're going to $100, $200, $300,000. That in every bear market, this is how deep we've gone. So where did 12 to 14K come from?
Or do we do what we've done in every bull run, in every bear market, where it actually comes down to here?
Something we talked about several times a long time ago. But there's problems with this, right? So we're talking about this is what has happened in every bear market for Bitcoin, that this is how deep Bitcoin has gone. But there's massive problems here. Absolutely nothing of the price behavior is similar to those moments of when that happened for Bitcoin back then. Yes, that's the percentage that it fell down, but the behavior of the price action is vastly different than those times in past. And then there becomes a problem too. If we become so stuck on the magic, right? If we say it's the magic of 4-year cycles, it's the magic of 85%, then we have to also say, well, why didn't that work to the upside? Why didn't the magic send it into a massive bull run? Well, then the same people will argue diminished returns on Bitcoin. Okay, fair enough, diminished returns. So what is the argument for if Bitcoin is going to fall 85%, then how high is the next bull run going to go? If this one only went up 248% above the previous high, and if this one went up 1,500%, what is that? what does that mean that the next one, if the next one's going to be a diminished return of this one, how high are you going to get for the next one? Because this was only 15% of this. 248%, 15% of 1,580. If you're going to assume you're going to get 15% of 248%, then you're assuming the next bull run's going to take you to like $100,000 to $110,000. You're going to get up to like right here, and then that's the end of it. Because the problem comes here is that math just doesn't work anymore at this point right in here. If you say we have to go 85, if we have to go 85%, if we have to go down to these price levels, but also saying that we have the law of diminishing returns, and that if we're going to use this as a model to say, well, hey, the diminishing returns means the next bull run's only 15% more than what the last one is. That means the next bull run's only going to be about 38% higher than the previous all-time high. But even then, at that moment, you're still saying, well, we then have to do another 85% crash again. So essentially, it would look something like this, right? Bouncing in here, going up, and then we'll take this one off the screen, and then we do rise, and then we fall 85% again at the same time. This is not great, right? Because then what happens with the next one of 32% if you're only going to do, or 38%, if you're only going to do 15% of that, well, then that means the next high is only going to be 5% higher than the last one, which means you then move on to bouncing up to here and then falling 85% all over again. And so this is just not typically how charts behave. This is just not typically how price behavior reacts. And we see problems with this just because to say we have to act like the past, because we've already, with every indicator, not acted like the past. So the idea of 12 to 14K has always been there, even before we ever set our top for Bitcoin, that this is how deep previous bull runs go. And it's very easy to lean on, or previous bear markets go, and it's very easy to lean on that and say that's what we have to do because that's what we've always done. But what's the argument for why we only went up 248%? And what's the argument for moving forward beyond that? Because this, if we use that logic and we say this is what has to happen next, we have the law of diminishing returns. That's why the bull run didn't go as high, but we don't have law of diminishing falls. So we have to always maintain these 85% falls, but we are subject to the diminishing returns to the upside. That argument doesn't fly with me. It just doesn't work. This just seems silly to me. So the idea of going down this deep and heading to the 12 to 14K level has always been there. The problem is, so is being back at the all-time high. And we exhibited all the same behavior from an indicator level, sentiment level, and price fractal behavior to say we've now acted like what has happened when capitulations have occurred. But now we're going deeper. So not only do we lose that level of saying that can be the bottom, but now we've even lost all indicator behavior and price behavior, fractal behavior, oversold, sentiment, all these things. Everything on the charts doesn't match what happens for these types of falls to occur for Bitcoin and to do exactly what we've done in every past bear market for Bitcoin. None of it lines up anymore. We had every signal flashing of the bottom happening from here. And even if we get this, we will not have the same technicals, the same price behavior. Nothing about it will match once we get to that price level, if that price level does come for Bitcoin. So what was that thing we talked about next?
Or is the stock market in real crazy chaos, and we go even lower? We'll find out.
Now remember, all of this is being drawn up here before the top has even come in for Bitcoin. Why would I say that we could go even deeper than what we've ever seen before? Why was I talking about earlier that we could see the biggest bear market that we've ever seen before, and just the typical 85% may not be all that we get?
This time could be different if the stock market is different. It could not be your typical 85% crash you normally see in Bitcoin. And there's people here who want to say this time is different. Institutions are here, blah, blah, blah. Bitcoin can't crash 85% because of institutions. I don't believe that for half a second. It absolutely could. No question. And if the stock market is topped, for real top, we could be in for a wild, wild ride.
And I made this video just a month ago saying what it would mean if Bitcoin breaks down. $12,000 in bull? Not so fast. Well, many would think I was the enemy of crypto back in October, November, and December of last year, saying that I thought the top was coming in for Bitcoin. This last period has been very similar in saying, look, every indicator is saying that this area needs to hold. If we want to in any way go look to the past and say that this is going to be a bottom, or if a bottom's coming in sometime soon, this has to be it. If you're going to use 2014 and 2015 as a reference, if you're going to use 2018 and 2019 as a reference, every indicator is saying this has to be the bottom. Even in 2018, there's no reference points of where Tether supply has dropped except for in the capitulation phase in 2018. You even had your Tether supply capitulate here in 2022. Same behavior. But lots of screams that we're going to 12 to 14K. Obviously, everybody accepting the idea that we're going to do what we've always done. We're going to do an 85% fall. We're going back to that price level, just like we were talking about in October of last year. But the biggest problem that exists out there is that it does not match in any way to 2014 and 2018. If I thought it did, I would sit there and say the exact same thing. I would be saying, you know what? It looks like that's where we're heading to. It matches up. That's where we're going. Problem is, everything happened from higher levels, and now we're just crumbling. And in this video, we dive into it very deep on 37 minutes of if it broke, would it mean bigger problems? And so you got a lot of people really holding on to the idea that this level right here has to be the hold level because it's always held in this area and in this area from a percentage standpoint. But every single thing about it is nothing like it. So the problem that Bitcoin has now created in here is it's removed the signals for a bottom coming in, and it's not going to have those signals if the price does get here. If price gets to 12, 13, 14K, just no matter what, to guess that that's the bottom, you don't have any of the signals here to say you do. The only thing you can really do is just guess and say, hey, this is the percentage that we fell in the past. That means we're good. That's all you got. You got no signals, none whatsoever on here to tell you that it's the bottom at this point. But what we saw for Ethereum, what we've seen for lots of assets, we even saw it happen over there for Netflix, is that if you make this structure, if you have this thing happen, crash, retrace, reaccumulation, breakout 4.236 extension, it sets itself up very seriously for prices coming back down into the 2000s. In Ethereum's example, so Ethereum in 2018, it fell down into here. And then it did bounce. It caught a very sweet bounce right in here for Bitcoin that took you back to $35,000 to $40,000 and then rolled over and went all the way down, which we've talked about here many times for Ethereum and for Bitcoin is the crash, retrace, reaccumulation, your 4.236 extension. Prices fall back down and then it catches a really sweet bounce. That area for Bitcoin, that's up there at 40K. Problem is, when Netflix did something similar to this, not so lucky. Paused, straight line down, and it got there after the crash, retrace, reaccumulation. So what's my point? My point is I sound like a fudster for sitting here saying there's this potential that Bitcoin goes below $3,000 and goes below the 2018 low. I sound like a fudster, and people have always given me flack for that. People always want to try to point out every single thing, every slip up that I make, sees it as an opportunity. This time period in October of 2021, I was sent out to the barracks and had stones thrown at me. It's been a lot like that at the current levels that we're at right now for Bitcoin, or have been for the last 4 months, because everybody is wanting this 12 to 14K price level to be this hold, because that's the same percentage of what we did in 2018 and that we did in 2014. But the argument here is that you have absolutely nothing similar in Bitcoin's current price behavior that mimics that of 2014 and 15 or of 2018 and 2019. And it's very much mimicking one that the final end result of Bitcoin, when the bottom finally does come in for Bitcoin, is one that is in the 2000s. And I really wanted to dive back into this because I get it. Not everybody can watch every video that I put out. It's not a topic we talk about in every video. It gets sprinkled in once every couple months. But to understand my mindset and how I've been operating for the last year is that I've been operating under this ideology that we're going lower. Here's the places that I'm going to be looking for. One is going to be the all-time high. Boom. We get all the same signals of what we've had historically back at the all-time high. Two, in every bear market, we've seen an 85%. That $13.1 thousand. Hey, that's how deep we would always go. What's the problem with it? Absolutely nothing of the structure of how we have gotten here with no retracements happening in here, no indicators happening in here. are mimicking of what would happen if a true bottom came in. And 3, what happens if something's going on with the stock market? What happens if this price structure is the exact same as Ethereum was in 2017 and 2018? That gets you down to $2,000. The price behavior has still mirrored that of one that is heading to $2,000. And like we've talked about for the last several months, the stock market is flashing the signs that the top of it is in. It's an exciting time right now for a lot of people in the stock market because it's gotten back to the 0.618. I called my mother-in-law. I said, listen, this is a really scary time for the stock market. What are you thinking about doing? She said she talked to her financial advisor, and her financial advisor told her to do nothing, just keep riding in it. She's 100% in equities, over in her 60s. I can't believe it. The sentiment out there in regards to the stock market is still there, like it's going to keep going up. And the narrative for the stock market is that if you pop 20% off the bottom, you've re-entered a bull market. Over here on Twitter from Zero Hedge, Dow Jones needs another 2.5% to enter a bull market. What is the story happening in here? What happens if you go up 2.5% more? And at that time when that was posted, it was right back down in here, 2.5%. Where is it going to take you to? It's going to take you right back to the 702 retracement, and everybody is going to be told, we've now entered a bull market. Historically, if this thing is a top, usually these things will not get there like that. We usually will see a fall down into these levels before you go up and try to hit this. But look at the narrative already being outlaid out there. 2.5% higher. The 702 retracement, ladies and gentlemen, the 702 retracement is the official number for where everybody in mainstream media is going to exclaim that the Dow Jones is in a bull market. The mainstream media is going to pull them in right here, saying that we are in a bull market. As at that exact moment, we will now be at 20%, which is the official number that they use to say we've now entered into a new bull market if we are 20% off the low. And just shy of the 702 retracement, they are going to say we have now entered a bull market. But we've gone through this intensely. Make your own choice on what you think it is. It is mimicking that of one that is not in a bull market, but is working on a retracement. How it's going to get there, I don't know. Typical behavior is it gets here just like this and then fumbles. But we've been tracking the stock market for the last several months saying, look, we have done things in here that are not good. So we're going back, looking through the things we were talking about in 2021, October of 2021, before the top was coming in, expecting the top to be coming in, anticipating how price behavior could play out and which one would be the bottom. Would it be the all-time high? Would it be the 85% like we typically see in every fall? Or would it be something much worse in correlation with the stock market and the structure that we've created with Bitcoin in comparison to things like Ethereum and like Netflix? And at the all-time high, we exhibited all of the technical structures and technical behaviors of the charts of what happens when bottoms come in. And we've officially gone through those. We've gone past those. So none of the technicals that can be used here in 2014 and in 2018 can be used to draw a conclusion to say we're doing things similar to this time period, because now we're officially not. We can't use the RSI, we can't use the MACD, we can't use moving averages, you can't use the fear and greed index. None of those align with 2014 and 2018. Zero. So to say that we're going to have our bottom here is merely to say it's because it's the same percentages that we did in 2014 and 2018. Yes, everything else is different, but hey, man, 85%. So the point of me doing all of this is to sit here and show you what has been my thought process for the last year. Now that we've gone ahead and we've taken out a new low, what's my thought process moving forward? Am I now going to jump on the bandwagon of saying, you know what, my original idea was that we would head down to these price levels, so I'm thinking that's what's going to happen? Yes, it's possible, but I think there's so many things that do not support it anymore. I think you have a very wobbly stock market. You have a structure that typically goes down to below the accumulation lows, which would be the 2018 lows. And we've lost every single indicator that would say 85% is consistent with the past. So where are all the indicators that align with it? None of them will. Do I think we could catch a fat bounce somewhere in there? Definitely. Definitely think we could. It's what we saw happen for Ethereum. We got a big fat bounce. Big retracement came in here. It'd be like anywhere between, 36, 37, 38, 39, 40,000. But like I've said all year long, I think the best case scenario for Bitcoin would be that there would be some type of retracement. However, if we maintained the current structure that Bitcoin had at this point, I'd give the benefit of the doubt to the bulls that a new all-time high could happen because we were mirroring that of which happens when new ones begin. While I didn't think it was likely, and I gave it like a 10% chance, if you remember, I said there's a 10% chance that we're going to set a new all-time high. And I put a 90% chance on it that it's just the retracement. The move that has now happened here, whether we find a bounce in here or not, from my personal viewpoint, I now say 99% chance Bitcoin does not set a new all-time high before it sets a new low below 2018. Fingers crossed, we do get a bounce that takes it back to $36,000 to $40,000 as a retracement, and the Bitcoin dominance crumbles along with it. But I laid this out just like I laid out my ideas back in October of 2021 that should we find a bounce in here? Most definitely. I will not be looking for anything more than a retracement out of Bitcoin, and I do believe the era of Bitcoin has passed us by. Doesn't mean the digital asset period has passed us by, but I do believe the era of Bitcoin being the showstopper and the big winner has passed us by. And the reason I say that is because I had 3 ideas of how I imagined that the fall would happen for Bitcoin and 3 areas of interest for me, knowing that historically Bitcoin falls about 85% in 2014 and in 2018. That's the normal fall. However, we got back to the all-time high and exhibit all the exact same characteristics for Bitcoin of what occurs when that has already happened. Now we're going deeper and we're going to have none of those characteristics be the same of what happens when bottoms come in. And for that, besides saying 4-year cycles, besides saying 85% falls and diminishing returns, right? That we're going to just keep only doing 15%, but we're going to continue doing 85% falls. I do believe something different is at play, and our work is going to be cut out for us. But I don't come here to just, be gloom and doom. But, I always try to tell you as real as I possibly can. Like the video you're seeing from October of 2021, the day Bitcoin breaks out into an all-time high, everybody's hooting and hollering and cheering, and I'm over here drawing out. It's over, man. This is the end. It took 6 months to get back to the all-time high. The day we break into the all-time high, I'm saying, here we go. This is how the bear market's going to play out now. That's not exciting to hear. What I'm talking about right now is not exciting to hear. Talking about like a $2,000, $3,000 Bitcoin and the difficulties we're now going to have here moving forward. But I see such a flawed argument on saying we have to do an 85% fall because we've always done an 85% fall, yet at the same time also saying diminished returns to the upside. I mean, we have diminished returns to the upside, but we still have to do 85% fall. I drew out what it would look like. It essentially means we eventually go flat and we never rise ever again. That logic means that Bitcoin will never break above $120,000 ever in the history of its entire life. It will never get above $120,000 if you use the diminished returns along with 85% crashes for every cycle. While that may be true, Bitcoin may never cross above $120,000. I do believe that is a flaw in the argument for those who are trying to say that we have to do an 85% crash and then we go on to new all-time highs. Which one is it? Is it diminished returns or is it 85% crashes? Which one is it? You get what I'm saying, right? There's a huge flaw in the whole argument of what's happening in here. And even though on October 20th of 2021, the day we were breaking out into a new all-time high, I thought we were at the end of it. I presented the idea that Bitcoin can go down 85%. Even though people thought it was impossible for it to happen due to institutional interest and that I would not buy into that. I totally believed it was possible we could go down that deep. There are a lot of problems with the chart saying that we're going to hold there. It doesn't mean we won't bounce, like a really nice sweet bounce coming out of there. But what has happened in here does set up big problems for Bitcoin long term. And I think this also has a lot of flaws that people aren't thinking about as well for the people who are Bitcoin maximalists, Bitcoin bulls, and totally focused on Bitcoin, is that they're not paying attention to why this is happening to them. Why is it that the Bitcoin dominance is sitting at this low way down here? Why is Bitcoin's price so low and the Bitcoin dominance not rising? And that's because something else is at play with Bitcoin. So we have plenty of stuff to dive into. in the coming days and weeks. And we'll dive into all of it as time goes on. All hope is not lost. As you know, the altcoin market, it's still at least holding right now. We'll see how it goes as time progresses. Hopefully this is just a spring, but we're obviously in a very wild moment here in the market, and things are still rapidly developing with the whole SBF stuff, which he just made an absolutely incredibly enlightening tweet where he is now adding more letters to his tweets with what HAPPE, I'm assuming it's going to say, happened. So just a circus out there in regards to SBF and FTX and all that stuff going on. And we're just going to have to kind of let it play. Seems like every 12 hours or so, something rapidly develops in this whole scenario. We'll keep our eyes on it. And this video has gotten absurdly long. It's now afternoon, and I haven't even exported it yet, and I'm still rambling. So I don't know. I think we got at least like the first 2/3 of this thing was pretty detailed. I think it kind of started getting rambling there at the end of it. But all right, I'm going to go ahead and wrap it up. Thank you so much for watching. If you could, please like this video and give it a thumbs up. If you're new to the channel, please subscribe and hit the notification bell so you can be notified when I create new content and when I go live. As always, this is not investment advice, and I am not a financial advisor. But if you ever need a pick-me-up or a little bit of reassurance, just remember that the blockchain backers got your back. Have a good one.